Hello everyone. Tonight we are walking under a sky that smells like rain and crushed leaves into a narrow path where tall bamboo leans close, as if it has gossip to share, but only in whispers you can barely catch. The light is soft and green, the kind that smooths the edges off everything including your thoughts, and somewhere a breeze keeps changing its mind about whether it wants to show up or not. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you really like what I do here. And if you feel like it, drop your location and the time in the comments, because I love picturing how this little story floats across different evenings and mornings. Now turn off the lights, maybe turn on the fan for some soft background music, and let's enjoy our evening ride together. You shuffle along the gravel, feeling it give a little under your soles, and the first thing you notice is the quiet. Which is a funny thing to notice, because quiet should be nothing, but here it is, a presence, a soft animal that settles around your shoulders. Cicadas hold their breath, birds have decided to be off the clock, and even your own steps feel overdressed for the occasion. The bamboo makes these tall cathedral columns, jointed and fox-colored at the nodes. But when you reach out and tap one, the sound travels in a hollow woodwind tone that seems to go farther than it should. You tilt your head and catch the echo, returning from somewhere deeper in the grove, 2 beats late, like it had to take a scenic route to find you. The path threads forward in a line so gentle, you almost miss the curves, and that breeze finally commits, skimming your cheeks, slipping across the backs of your hands, moving the leaves in a synchronized shiver. You keep your pace unhurried because the place demands that sort of respect, and also because your legs are happily in low power mode. Old paper tag charms hang from a few columns, bleached and soft at the edges, and you get the feeling they remember weather you have never met. The scent changes the farther you go, leaning toward cool water and crushed stem a little, like an empty teacup after a long conversation. Every now and then, the light puddles on the ground, in pale ovals, little mirrors thrown by gaps in the canopy, and you step through them the way you step through shallow surf, more for the texture than the destination. A small bridge appears without preamble, just a few worn planks arched over a ditch that holds more shadow than water, and you cross it, because bridges are invitations you do not decline. On the other side, the hush actually deepens, which you would not have thought possible. But here we are. And even your breath decides to move closer to your ribs to keep the noise down. You pause to press your palm against a cool stalk, and it presses back in that slow vegetal way, acknowledging your existence without signing any contracts. Something gleams and is gone, a glint like the last light on a bead of dew, and you are suddenly aware of the tiny hairs on your forearms waking up for their shift. You hold still. The grove holds still with you. The world does that thing where it narrows to a pinpoint and then opens again, and when it opens, you notice how the path ahead looks faintly dusted with a glow that is not sunlight, not moonlight either. It is the softest wash of pale gold, like what you get when a lantern is shy but trying to be helpful. The glow slides behind the bamboo, and you move forward, not stalking, just curious with your weight on your heels, so your steps land like folded paper. At a bend in the trail, you stop again, because now the glow has a rhythm to it, a slow inhale and exhale, brightening and dimming as if it is breathing. You angle your shoulder into a soft clump of leaves, and the world presents you with an opening, a small clearing hardly bigger than a room, and you step in with that careful half step you save for rooms you have not been invited into yet. The air is cooler here, as if the ground is keeping a bowl of night just below your ankles. And then you see it not all at once, but in pieces that your brain has to assemble in the right order. A tail, first moving like a brush, dipped in light, swaying with the ease of a thing that knows its own balance. A shape low and neat, with ears catching the pale glow on their edges. Eyes like lacquer, so still they seem to be painted on until they blink, and you realize they were just being considerate. The lantern is small, round, and made of something that lets light breathe through it without ever letting it spill or shout, tied to the tail with a thin cord that rests in the fur like it has lived there for ages. The fox does not startle, does not bolt, does not even shift its weight. It simply stands at the clearing's far edge, almost the same color as the grove itself, the lantern turning its steps into echoes of glow on the pebble path. You keep your hands in your pockets because you do not know what else to do with them, and you are acutely aware of every loud thing a human body can do when it is trying not to be loud. The fox takes one step, then another, and the lantern answers by brightening just enough to write a small circle of gold on the ground. The bamboo responds with a soft knocking of leaves, a conversation in a language you do not understand but can almost hum along to. When you finally move, the fox matches you, keeping that small gap of air between you that equals trust without carelessness. The path dips and pulls you into a long aisle, and the culms bend in the gentlest arch overhead until the sky becomes a green ceiling you could trace with your palms. You find that your stride loosens into a slow sway that matches the rhythm of the stalks. The lantern fox, yes, that is the only name your mind will allow, tilts its head back every few steps as if checking your progress or counting your breaths. You try to count with it and then forget, because counting is a job for the clocks, and you are not getting paid tonight. A cluster of wind chimes appears along the path, all made of narrow slivers of bamboo, and the breeze tests each one with a single fingertip. They do not ring. They sigh. The sound slides under your skin like warm tea settling a little argument your shoulders were having with gravity. The ground smells greener here, and once you catch a thread of something sweet, maybe a late blossom you cannot see hiding in the dim. You pass an old stone carved with a character worn down to a friendly smudge, and you tap it once with your knuckle a hello that the stone returns by being exactly what it is. The fox pauses at a fork where the path splits, lantern hovering like a small moon caught on a thread. Left fades into thicker stalks and the weight of deeper green. Right keeps that patient glow of open space. The fox looks right then back to you, and you get the sense it is asking whether you trust your own feet. You choose neither immediately and simply breathe, which is shockingly acceptable to everyone involved. When you finally angle right, the fox nods. At least it feels like a nod, and you both move on. A little wind lifts in front of you, pushing scattered leaves into slow patterns that look like handwriting you could almost read if you lowered your expectations. The lantern rides the draft, and you want to laugh at how it finds balance without trying like a boat that was built exactly for this river. You realize at some point you stopped worrying about the end of the path. You could walk like this until the night folds itself away and a pale morning climbs up the culms, and it would feel like the most normal thing you have ever done. The grove feels older now, not in a museum way, but in the way a favorite mug feels older, literal, useful, full of memory without asking you to bow. The fox turns one's tail, placing the lantern between you like a small hearth. You step closer because the light invites you to, and the fox lets you. Its ears, relaxed eyes reflecting that soft gold, so they look like coins at the bottom of shallow water. The lantern's glow glances off 1,000-leaf edges, and they turn their faces to it like polite audience members. You let your breathing slow until you can hear the fine creak inside each inhale, and the grove seems to hinge on that rhythm. The path widens ahead into a suggestion of a clearing, the light pooling there in a way that makes you think about the shape of water, and the fox lifts its chin to send the lantern's circle just a little farther. You follow, because following has become the easiest promise you have made to yourself all week. You realize that the bamboo is not silent at all. It is simply speaking in a register that rewards the patient. Your feet learn it first, then your spine, then finally your thoughts, which decide to sit down for a while and let your senses do the commuting. The lantern fox trots on, not hurrying, not dawdling, and you move with it into the part of the grove where even the quiet seems to glow. The clearing is not a sudden break in the grove, but a gradual unfolding like a page being turned without the creak of binding. You ease into it without realizing, and then your feet feel softer. Ground moss maybe, or a floor of compacted green that remembers more rain than sun. The lantern fox slows its tail, lifting the small light just enough to spill gold over the edges of the space, and you see the bamboo stand wider apart, here giving the night sky a chance to lean in. It leans in with a stretch of stars that blink at you like they have just woken up from a long nap. You look up because of course you do, and for a moment the bamboo and the stars share the same vertical rhythm, as if the culms were simply long ladders trying to reach what they can never touch. The air here is cooler, but not in an unfriendly way. It holds on your skin like a thin shawl, urging you to stay a little longer. The fox settles itself by a flat stone at the center of the clearing lantern, resting beside it, and you take the hint, lowering yourself onto the moss as if it had been saving your seat. The ground cushions your weight, and even though you know it is just dirt and roots, it feels engineered for exactly this purpose. You rest your palms against the earth and feel a hum, not literal sound, but a vibration that tells you this grove has had more conversations than you could ever record. The fox curls its tail neatly, eyes closing halfway, and the lantern flickers in rhythm with its breathing. You notice that the light does not just sit still. It drifts slightly in and out, growing stronger when the fox exhales, softer when it inhales, as if the lantern were part of its lungs. You shift your gaze back to the sky, and the stars feel closer than usual, sharp without being cold, scattered without being chaotic. A streak cuts across just a quick whisper of a meteor, and for a second, you forget to breathe, which makes the return of your own inhale feel like a gift. Your body adjusts, shoulders falling lower, spine settling like a stack of books, finally finding the right shelf. The night sounds are faint here, just enough to remind you the world has not stopped a frog somewhere insisting on its solo. A thread of wind combing through higher leaves, a distant crack that could be a branch or just the earth stretching. You think about how many people, if any, have sat in this exact spot. How many footsteps have tried to chase the lantern fox only to get lost before finding this clearing? The thought is oddly comforting, like belonging to a club you did not know existed until tonight. You look back at the fox, and its eyes catch the lantern's glow just enough to appear molten, as if small suns had been tucked into its sockets. It tilts its head once, and you get the impression that it knows you are wondering about stories. What does this creature mean? Why is it here? What purpose does it serve? But it withholds answers the way an elder withholds the punchline of a story until you have truly earned it. You accept that surprisingly easily. The longer you sit, the more the clearing feels like it is gently expanding, as though space itself has decided to relax its belt after dinner. The bamboo that marks the edges seems taller, the stars fuller, the air deeper. You notice your breathing has synced to the lantern's flicker, which means in some sideways sense, it is synced with the fox as well. You wonder if that counts as communion or if it is just biology being lazy and copying what works. The moss beneath you feels warm now, though you know it is not. It is simply your body finally admitting it can be comfortable. Your eyelids weigh more than before, not from fatigue, but from a quiet that seeps into them like ink into fabric. You resist closing them, not wanting to miss anything, but the grove is patient with your indecision. Another streak crosses the sky slower this time, and you imagine catching it in your pocket like a coin. The fox shifts slightly enough to rattle the lantern's cord, and the glow hiccups in response before smoothing back into its steady breathing pattern. You sense a rhythm here that has nothing to do with clocks or hours, a rhythm that predates your sense of time altogether. It is not about minutes passing, but about the way one leaf leans into another, how a breeze decides to start and stop, how a fox can carry a lantern without burning its fur. You take a deep breath, and for once, it feels like the inhale goes all the way down past lungs, past ribs, into the earth itself. When you let it out, the clearing seems to answer as though you have just joined the conversation without needing to know the language. The fox raises its head, ears alert for a moment, and you follow its gaze toward the edge of the grove. Nothing moves there, yet you feel a presence, not threatening, just observant. The shadows at the margin seem thicker, like they are made of something with weight. You sit still, letting the fox decide what happens next, and after a pause, it relaxes again, as if to say the watcher was nothing more than another part of the grove. You do not push the thought away. You let it sit beside you like an acquaintance who does not need small talk. A soft rustle draws your eye to the ground, where tiny fireflies rise in uneven spirals, their pale dots of light joining the lantern's glow without competing. It is less a swarm than a quiet agreement to decorate the air, and soon the clearing looks like a dome, lined with small constellations mirrored above and below. You realize you are smiling, but in the slow way that never touches your teeth, only stretches the corners of your face, like dawn stretching into morning. You do not clap, you do not reach, you simply sit and allow the scene to exist. Time, or whatever version of it functions, here drapes itself loosely around your shoulders, and you do not care how long you have been sitting. The fox eventually uncurls, standing with a feline kind of elegance lantern swaying from its tail like a pendulum announcing the end of an hour. You rise too, not out of duty, but because it feels like the right part of the dance. The clearing does not shrink as you leave. It simply folds itself back into the grove, confident you can find it again if you ever deserve it. The path resumes narrow and hushed, and you step into it with the fox ahead, the lantern's glow leading you deeper into the kind of night that insists you pay attention. The path out of the clearing feels narrower than before, but maybe that is just your eyes adjusting to the subtle shift in light. You follow the lantern fox, its tail swaying in that hypnotic rhythm, casting elongated shadows on the bamboo stalks that now seem taller, thicker, like guardians bowing slightly as you pass. The air cools in pockets, as if you are walking through invisible pools of different temperatures. Each step feels deliberate, like the ground has chosen where your foot should land before you even think about it. The bamboo begins to lean together overhead, weaving a ceiling of pale green that blocks most of the sky, though sometimes a star slips through the cracks, daring you to catch it. The fox does not hurry. It moves with the same unbothered tempo as if it has walked this path for centuries and knows there is no reason to rush. You notice the lantern glow bending slightly in the draft, and you realize there must be an opening ahead wider than before. Sure enough, the bamboo thins gradually until you are standing on the edge of a slope. The ground falls away into a shallow valley where mist hangs low, thick enough to blur the lines of trees and rocks into soft smudges. The lantern's light reflects faintly off the mist, giving it a pearly sheen like a giant sheet of silk spread across the earth. You hesitate, but the fox steps forward, confidently paws, sinking into the fog without resistance. You follow, and the mist curls around your legs in slow spirals, cool and damp, but not unpleasant. It clings for a moment, then lets go, leaving your skin tingling as if you have just brushed against a hidden current of air. The valley is quiet in a way that feels purposeful, as though all sound has been tucked into storage. Even your footsteps are muffled, swallowed by the fog. The fox stops near a cluster of stones, rising out of the mist like islands, its lantern glow outlining their edges in ochre. You climb onto one, the stone cool but steady, and sit while the fox curls around its lantern. The mist drifts lazily, and every now and then it parts enough to reveal the outline of a tree bent in a perfect arch, or a patch of grass glistening with dew that should not exist at this hour. It feels like the valley is showing you fragments of itself, never the whole picture, like a dream that edits itself as you notice it. You lean back on your hands, breathing in the moist air, which tastes faintly metallic, like rain long overdue. Your eyes play tricks here. Shapes in the fog seem to move, then dissolve when you focus. A figure that might have been a deer melts into nothing, and a shadow that looked like a person evaporates into mist. The fox watches too, its gaze calm, unafraid, as though it knows the valley's illusions are part of its language. You begin to relax into the rhythm of it, the reveal, the dissolve, the waiting. Each glimpse feels like a promise, but you never demand more than what is given. Then, the wind arrives, not strong, but steady, slipping across the valley like a hand smoothing out wrinkles in fabric. The mist stirs, folds shifting, and suddenly the valley opens into a clearer view. You see a shallow stream cutting through silver, even in the dim light, with reeds bending along its banks. You almost hear the water's trickle faint beneath the fog's hush. The fox rises, lantern tail swinging, and steps down from the stones, moving toward the stream. You follow again, feet brushing against reeds you cannot always see until they bend back against your shins. The closer you get, the more the stream comes alive, its surface rippling with the faint glow of stars above. The fox lowers its head as if drinking, though you cannot tell if it actually touches the water. You crouch nearby, dipping your fingers in. The water is colder than expected, startling enough to make you inhale sharply. The ripples carry your reflection in broken pieces, mixing your face with the lantern light and the blurred outline of the fox. For a moment, you feel less like yourself, and more like part of the valley's fabric. You stay there, hand in the water, until the cold becomes tolerable, almost soothing. When you finally pull away, droplets trail from your fingers, tiny jewels before they vanish into your skin. The fox has already turned, leading you farther along the stream, its lantern glow marking the path. You walk beside the water mist, brushing your ankles like restless cats, and the reeds sway in a rhythm that does not quite match the breeze. The valley seems endless in its patience, content to let you walk without destination. But after a while, the stream bends toward a ridge where the bamboo resumes darker and denser. The mist thins here, revealing the ground more clearly, rock's root soil packed tight from centuries of rain and footsteps. The fox pauses at the ridge lantern light spilling upward, and you see a gap in the bamboo that resembles a doorway, tall and narrow. Beyond it, shadows seem to ripple alive in their stillness. The fox looks back at you, eyes molten in the lantern's glow, as if asking whether you are ready to step through. You take a breath deeper than the others, and the valley exhales with you, mist parting slightly in encouragement. Your body feels both heavy and light, weighted by the moment but buoyed by something you cannot name. You nod, though no one demanded it, and step toward the bamboo doorway. The air grows cooler, the ground firmer, and the mist stops at the ridge as though it is not allowed to enter. You glance back once, and the valley has already begun to fold itself into fog again, erasing the stream and stones, until all that remains is a pale blur. The fox waits at the threshold, lantern steady, and together you pass into the darker grove. The doorway closes behind you without a sound, sealing the valley into memory, leaving you with only the rhythm of the lantern glow and the knowledge that you followed it deeper still. The grove you step into feels older than the valley, as though its roots have been weaving stories long before you arrived. The bamboo stalks here are thicker, darker, some with scars etched across their surfaces like faded hieroglyphs. You trail your hand along one and feel the grooves as though they were carved yesterday. Yet the moss that clings to them tells you they've survived countless seasons. The lantern fox moves slower now, tail swaying low, its glow pressing gently against the oppressive shadows that gather like watchful figures. The air is damp but charged, carrying that subtle hum you sometimes feel before a storm, except no storm is waiting here, just a silence so deliberate it feels rehearsed. You follow closely, your footsteps softened by a carpet of fallen leaves that smell faintly sweet like bamboo sap. Each crackle underfoot feels too loud, but the fox does not react, and you take comfort in its calm. The grove narrows into a winding corridor, bamboo leaning so tightly overhead that the sky is erased entirely, and the air thickens in response. You find yourself watching the lantern light more intently, as though it is the only anchor tethering you to movement. Your breaths come slower measured, blending with the quiet rhythm of the fox's steps. Then, almost without warning, the path spills into a wide circle, a clearing at the heart of the grove. Here the bamboo stands back, leaving a space bare, except for a single stone basin carved directly from the earth. The basin is filled with water so still it resembles glass, catching the lantern's glow and amplifying it until the clearing itself feels lit by some hidden sun. You approach, peering into the basin, and see more than just your reflection. The water bends the image, strangely distorting your face into unfamiliar shapes, layering it with glimpses of something older, maybe younger, maybe not you at all. You reach a hand toward it, but the fox circles the basin slowly, its lantern glow flickering across the surface, breaking the illusion. You withdraw your hand, letting the fox set the pace. Around the basin, faint carvings run in a spiral across the ground, worn but still visible. Symbols that resemble stars, waves, and animals, patterns that whisper meaning without ever clarifying. You step carefully along them, tracing the spiral inward, each curve drawing you closer to the basin again. At the center where the carvings converge, the fox sits, lantern tail lifted like a torch. The water trembles faintly, as if responding to its presence. You crouch near the basin again, not touching, only watching as ripples form out of nowhere, spreading outward until the surface looks like a shaken drum. The ripples stop as suddenly as they began, leaving the water smooth once more. Only now the reflection is not distorted. It shows a sky you cannot see from here, a sky heavy with stars so thick they blur into rivers of light. It is mesmerizing, like being offered a window into another time. The fox dips its muzzle into the basin, sending the reflection scattering into fragments of light that glimmer like shards of glass. You blink, and when your eyes adjust, the basin is plain water again, nothing more. You sit back, unsure whether you've seen something meant for you or if the grove simply reveals itself to whoever waits long enough. Either way, you feel different, steadier, as though some quiet piece of you has been acknowledged. The fox rises again, circling the basin once more, before heading toward another narrow gap in the bamboo. You hesitate only briefly, before following, glancing one last time at the water that now looks ordinary, its secrets already withdrawn. The new path is softer underfoot, lined with moss that muffles your steps entirely. The bamboo arches higher here, allowing thin ribbons of moonlight to thread their way down. The effect is subtle, but relieving the weight of the earlier shadows, lifting slightly. You breathe deeper, the air fresher, now tinged with a sweetness that reminds you of wet grass. The fox trots ahead, lantern glow blending with moonlight, the two lights weaving together until you can't tell where one ends and the other begins. The path bends and bends again, never straight, as though deliberately disorienting, but you no longer feel lost. The rhythm of following has become natural, like a song you've been humming unconsciously. Eventually, the ground tilts upward, and you find yourself climbing the incline, subtle but steady. Your legs grow heavier, not with fatigue, but with awareness, each step pressing into the earth like a promise. The fox never looks back, yet you feel its awareness of you, a tether stronger than sight. The incline peaks at a ridge, and suddenly the bamboo falls away into an open rise, overlooking the grove below. The view is startling. The clearing with the basin is visible, but from above it looks like an eye carved into the forest. The basin, its pupil, glowing faintly with residual light. The spiral carvings radiate outward more clearly, here forming patterns that resemble constellations when viewed from above. You linger at the ridge, absorbing the scale of it, while the fox sits beside you, lantern tail swaying gently. The wind picks up, brushing through the bamboo, carrying whispers you can't quite parse. They don't sound menacing, just old, layered with the kind of patience that outlives everything else. You close your eyes, letting the wind pass over your skin, carrying with it a sense of being both very small and perfectly placed. When you open your eyes, the fox is already moving again, descending the ridge into another stand of bamboo. You follow, feeling as though the grove has let you in on a secret you'll never fully understand, but will always carry. The downward path is easier, almost effortless, the lantern glow steady ahead, the moonlight trailing behind. The grove seems to hum faintly now, as though satisfied you have walked far enough to deserve it. You breathe with it, step with it, letting the rhythm take you deeper still. The descent carries you into a deeper part of the grove, where the air feels heavier, saturated with the earthy sweetness of moss and damp roots. Your footsteps land softer each stride, muffled until you wonder if you're even making sound at all. The fox's lantern glow moves steadily ahead, swaying with the rhythm of its tail, but now it seems less like a guide and more like a heartbeat, pulsing gently through the shadows. The bamboo here is thinner, but taller, bending slightly in ways that make you feel watched not by creatures, but by the grove itself. Every stalk creaks faintly, as though sighing with age, yet no breeze stirs them. You trail your hand across one, and the smooth surface shivers faintly at your touch, almost alive. You keep moving. Soon, the ground levels out into a wide stretch carpeted entirely with moss that glows faintly under the lantern light, pale and ghostly like the residue of fallen stars. The fox slows, padding gently, careful not to disturb the moss, and you mimic its steps. The silence here feels deeper, absorbing even your thoughts until only the sound of your breath remains. The grove presses inward, demanding presence, as if you cannot bring anything noisy from outside into this space. At the far edge of the mossy field stands a ring of stone pillars, their surfaces etched with grooves that spiral like vines frozen in stone. Some are broken, toppled, while others stand upright, leaning toward the center of the ring. You step closer, feeling the faint vibration of something humming within the stones, a low pulse that you can't hear but sense in your bones. The fox circles the pillars, lantern tail painting arcs of light along their scarred surfaces. The glow flickers, catching on tiny crystals embedded in the stone, making them glimmer like fireflies. You follow, running your fingers along the grooves, and feel warmth emanating faintly, though the stone should be cold. In the middle of the ring lies a flat stone slab worn smooth, a platform that looks neither entirely natural nor entirely made. It invites you closer, not with warmth, but with stillness. You kneel before it, and for a moment your breath syncs with the pulse inside the pillars. The fox sits opposite you, lantern glow, steady and unblinking. The grove itself seems to pause as though waiting. You rest your palm on the slab, and a sudden ripple runs through the moss at your feet, faint but undeniable. The stone does not move, yet the air vibrates softly as if acknowledging you. You withdraw your hand, unsure whether you've disturbed something sacred, but the fox does not flinch. Its eyes remain calm, reflecting the lantern glow like pools of amber. You take a long breath and feel your chest rise and fall in rhythm with the grove. After a while, the fox rises again, circling the slab once before moving between two of the pillars into another stretch of bamboo. You hesitate, glancing back at the stone ring, knowing you'll carry its pulse with you. As you follow, the path grows narrower, more tangled bamboo crossing overhead in jagged lattices. The lantern glow presses against the encroaching dark, revealing glimpses of twisted roots weaving through the soil like veins. The air is thick, tinged with the scent of smoke, though no fire burns nearby. You taste it faintly at the back of your throat, sharp but fleeting. Ahead, the path widens unexpectedly, opening into a hollow where the bamboo thins and the ground is scattered with feathers, pale against the dark earth. They are too many to belong to a single bird, drifting in small clusters as though left by countless wings brushing past. Some glisten faintly in the lantern light, catching the soft sheen of dew. You kneel to touch one, and it crumbles instantly, disintegrating into dust that vanishes on your fingertips. The fox steps lightly through the feathers without disturbing them, lantern glow, steady, and you follow cautiously. The hollow grows brighter as you move deeper, not from the lantern alone, but from countless faint glimmers rising around you. Fireflies, hundreds of them hovering among the bamboo, their lights pulsing in rhythm with one another, until the hollow feels like a living constellation. The fox pauses, sitting on its haunches, lantern tail swaying in time with the fireflies. You stand still, letting the glow wash over you, breathing slow, as though to avoid breaking the fragile harmony. The air hums faintly, each firefly's pulse synchronized like a choir of tiny lanterns. In that moment, the hollow feels endless, like you're standing beneath a reversed sky where stars float at your feet. You close your eyes and let the rhythm seep into you, calming, steady, timeless. When you open them again, the fireflies scatter, suddenly fading into the bamboo as though never there. Only the fox remains, lantern glow, unwavering. You feel a twinge of loss, but also gratitude, as though the hollow gave you a glimpse it rarely shares. The fox rises again, leading you out of the hollow and into another stretch of bamboo. This path is uneven, rising and falling, forcing you to climb over roots and duck beneath leaning stalks. Your hands grow dirty, but you don't mind. The rhythm of movement keeps you tethered. The lantern glow shifts subtly with each climb and descent, pulling you onward like a steady breath. At last, the ground evens, and you find yourself at the edge of a pond, so still it looks painted. Bamboo leans close to the water's edge, their reflections merging with your own, until you can't tell where one ends and the other begins. The fox stands at the water's edge, lantern glow spilling across the surface, scattering ripples that stretch to the far shore. You step beside it, staring into the pond. Beneath the ripples, shadows move faintly, though no fish break the surface. Shapes flicker just beyond recognition, forms that could be leaves or roots or something older, slower. You lean closer, but the fox dips its paw into the water, scattering the shapes into nothingness. The pond becomes plain again, only reflecting the lantern glow and the still bamboo. You straighten, exhaling, slowly realizing that every space here carries its own secret, shown and withdrawn in the same breath. The fox moves on, and you follow, leaving the pond behind. Your steps feel lighter now, almost floating, as though the grove has absorbed the weight you carried in. The lantern glow stretches ahead, steady and sure, pulling you deeper into the endless bamboo, where more secrets wait patiently, and time itself feels like it has chosen to pause for you. The path ahead narrows once more, the bamboo rising taller and denser, their pale stalks crowding together, until the lantern glow feels pressed in from all sides. The fox trots just ahead, tail swaying gently, lantern light brushing the stalks like passing fingertips. You follow close, listening to the crunch of your steps on dry earth, the occasional rustle of leaves far above, where the canopy knots tightly enough to blot out the stars. The air is cool, damp in a way that carries the weight of unseen streams threading beneath the soil. Soon, the path begins to slope, guiding you downward in slow, winding spirals. The ground feels more polished here, as though countless paws and feet had walked it before smoothing the way with patient persistence. You keep your balance with a hand on the bamboo, each stalk cold and firm, grounding you as the fox's lantern pulls you deeper. At the bottom of the slope, the grove opens suddenly into a clearing wide and circular, framed by an almost perfect ring of bamboo. At its center rises an ancient tree, its trunk gnarled and twisted, larger than any you've seen, its roots coiling out across the ground like sleeping serpents. The fox pauses before its lantern glow brushing the roots, and you feel the hush deepen even more, as if this place is the heart the entire grove beats around. You step closer, tracing the roots with your eyes, noticing carvings etched faintly into the bark, swirls, spirals, patterns like wind currents frozen in wood. They are worn, barely visible, yet they tug at something familiar, like an echo of a memory you've never owned. The fox leaps gracefully onto one of the roots circling around until it faces you, lantern glow steady. You approach, laying your hand on the tree's rough bark. A vibration hums beneath your palm, soft at first, then growing clearer, like the faint rhythm of a drum buried beneath earth and time. The air around you shifts, and the bamboo ring whispers with creaks and sighs, though no wind stirs. You close your eyes, feeling the rhythm sink into you, aligning with your own heartbeat, until it feels as though the grove itself breathes with you. When you open them again, the fox's lantern glow has intensified, casting long shadows across the clearing, each root stretching into the dark like veins of light. The fox watches unblinking as the air thickens with a faint golden haze. Shapes flicker faintly at the edges of your vision, not solid, but suggested forms of others who once stood here waiting, watching, listening. They dissolve as soon as you focus, but their presence lingers like afterimages on the back of your eyes. You step back, lowering your hand, and the hum fades to a faint pulse once more. The fox hops down, circling the roots again, before slipping around to the far side of the tree. You follow, moving carefully across the uneven ground. Behind the tree lies a narrow passage, a tunnel of leaning bamboo that feels tighter than anything you've passed through before. You hesitate, glancing back at the clearing, but the fox's lantern glow has already entered the tunnel, beckoning. You duck your head and move forward, the stalks brushing your shoulders and arms, closing in like ribs around a spine. The air grows cooler, sharper, carrying a metallic tang that reminds you of rain on stone. Your breath fogs faintly, and your footsteps echo in ways they shouldn't, bouncing softly from the bamboo walls. The tunnel stretches longer than you expect, each step carrying you deeper into a silence that feels carved out of the world. At last, you emerge into another clearing, smaller and darker than the last. Here, the ground is stone, slick and uneven, with shallow pools scattered across its surface. The lantern glow reflects faintly off the water, shimmering like fragments of glass. Above, the bamboo canopy is split, revealing a narrow slice of sky where clouds drift lazily, their edges tinged silver by a hidden moon. The fox pads lightly across the stone, weaving around the pools, its lantern tail casting shifting ripples on the water's surface. You step carefully, your reflection bending and warping in the shallow pools until it feels like countless versions of yourself walk beside you, all slightly distorted, all fading with each ripple. At the center of the stone clearing rises a low mound, almost like an altar, its surface smoothed by time. The fox leaps gracefully onto it, sitting still as the lantern glow expands softly, illuminating the clearing in muted ochre and gray. You approach slowly, your steps echoing faintly until you stand at the base of the mound. The fox tilts its head, watching you, its lantern glow steady but quiet, as though waiting for you to decide what comes next. You climb onto the mound, the stone cool under your hands and knees, and sit opposite the fox. The glow wraps around you, both soft and steady, holding the silence in place. You close your eyes, breathing slowly, and feel the grove itself settle, as if exhaling after a long wait. Images drift through your mind of mossy rings of stone, of hollow skies filled with fireflies of ponds, reflecting more than they show of roots humming beneath ancient bark. Each place you passed lingers now, weaving into one thread, binding you to this moment. When you open your eyes again, the fox lowers its lantern tail, setting the glow upon the stone. It flickers gently, then steadies brighter than before. The shadows shift, and for a moment the entire grove seems alive with light bamboo and stone and air bound together in quiet reverence. You breathe in, and the cool air tastes clean, unburdened. You breathe out, and the lantern glow steadies as if nodding in agreement. Slowly, the fox rises tail, swaying, lantern glow lifting once more. It leaps down from the mound and pauses at the edge of the clearing, glancing back at you. The path ahead is darker, but the lantern glow is steady, waiting certain. You rise, feeling lighter than when you first entered the grove, and follow. The stone clearing fades behind you, but its silence clings gently, a gift carried forward. The bamboo closes in again, tall and endless, but the glow ahead is enough. You step into it, leaving the past behind, moving with the rhythm of the grove, guided still by the lantern fox toward whatever waits beyond the next bend.